Well, hi, everybody. This is Jeff, and our topic tonight is no thought. And we have one caller on the call named Mark, and we will be having a meditation shortly of 2 songs, our discussion, and then another meditation of a few songs to end the evening talk. In these talks, I feel it's just great that people can come together in this type of aura associated with Brahma, Dr. Frederick Lenz. And I come up with a topic, really setting up a type of intent, really a few weeks to a month before the class. And I found out over the years, because I've been teaching meditation for many years, both physically and over a year now with these virtual classes. And I found that, interesting enough, if people can stay relaxed and available to a certain extent, that some interesting things happen in regard to types of knowledge that are imparted to everybody on the call, including myself. So in that regard, I'm a participant also. Maybe 95% of what I do here is as a participant. It's something I really look forward to because knowledge is a very interesting kind of thing and how it comes to us. So many things can be said about knowledge and how it's conveyed to us. And we can do something with it. There's also, as I mentioned in these classes, a type of spin. And I call it, for lack of a better word, kind of an energetic type of formation or property. It's of awareness, actually, because we are dealing with the flow of awareness in these classes. And that this spin is almost like a type of whirling energy. It has a really interesting kind of power to it, and it can take us somewhere. So I've always noticed it throughout the years, and probably maybe on this class we'll comment a little bit more about the nature of that spin and what we can do with it. As we're also dealing with Kundalini energy, which has a lot to do with the flow of awareness. All our classes really touch on the flow of awareness. There's just so many kind of angles and aspects of it that literally can have hundreds and hundreds of talks that would approach a different angle in regard to the flow of awareness and how to use Kundalini energy and all sorts of things. So what I usually do in these classes is I say a few words, which I've already done, and then we do our meditation to kind of build up a certain amount of energy to raise our vibrational level and our awareness level, so that we then can do. I can do a few more minutes of talking, and that the energy and the raised awareness will be able to access that kind of talk in a particular way. We don't want to talk too much. So if anything, as a teacher, I'm getting better at keeping my talking tighter. And the main takeaway, there's many takeaways in a class like this, but the main takeaway is to have fun, relax, but once again, to stay focused and aware. And we walk away with some interesting kind of energy and kind of knowledge that we can actually use to take our meditations further. It also helps us in our daily life, such as our career, creative activities, relationships, and so on. So we're going to meditate tonight, at least initially here, 2 songs. They are the Surfing the Himalayas music, which I believe are 10 inspiring songs. As Rama said that he would use, and I think he especially developed this Surfing the Himalayas music set to be inspiring. So he used it for inspiration when he was writing his books or the various things that he did. So I highly recommend this particular 10 song set. He specifically designed it, as I said, for inspirational purposes, as far as I know. If I haven't mentioned it, please take everything that I say with a grain of salt. But obviously, please consider some of the things, because I think ultimately it's what you do with anything that you perceive and are engaging with. So we will start the first song. We'll do 2 songs, a total of 7.5 minutes, with the first 2 tracks of Surfing the Himalayas. So we'll start in about 10 seconds. Just keep your back straight, and you're sitting in a chair, your feet flat on the ground. And you can put your hands on your knees if you wish, but straight back, but obviously stay relaxed as much as you can. Well, good. So that's our first meditation. And has anybody else joined us? Okay, I guess not. So, as I mentioned, I'll say a few more words here before we open it up for a discussion. And no thought, of course, is so important. It's major. We've had other two discussions on deepening our meditation and building up a momentum in our meditation, which has to do with many things, but part of it has to do with the spin that I've talked about. It's kind of a really interesting, powerful energy that can take us somewhere. As I've mentioned in many of the talks, there's a similar concept in the Don Juan type of knowledge called stopping the internal dialogue. And that's also considered one of the most important things in that type of knowledge that Don Juan has conveyed to Carlos Castaneda and others of his students or practitioners. So this is something really that to pay attention to. And we all have our own kind of take on it. And so it'll be interesting, to hear what Mark has to say in our discussion. And I'll throw out a few things that I've learned. There's just so many things. And each of us approaches this major topic in our own particular way. But like I said, I'm going to mention a few things right now, maybe some personal things in regards to things that I've discovered. And like I said, well, also what Mark has discovered, if he wishes to share that. I've noticed when the thoughts slows down, there's a discernible flow of Kundalini energy. And I feel it's, if we start feeling it, it's very noticeable. It's going to be in the main channel, the Sushumna. Just briefly, we would mostly throughout the day may not notice the flow of Kundalini energy because it's flowing through the Ida and Pingala, which is all natural and everything. But it's interesting when we start feeling that flow more in the main channel. And we can do something with that. Very important, actually, in the meditation that I do myself, and also that I learned from Rama. And he really felt Kundalini energy, and being able to flow with that properly was a big thing. I mean, that was something he talked a fair amount about throughout the years, especially those first few years when we started off with him in Lakshmi. It does seem like, and this comes from Stop the Internal Dialogue from Don Juan, it's expressed by Carlos Castaneda, that it almost seems like a word or a description can obstruct our view of what is beyond the type of way that we perceive this world. There's other kinds of orientations that we can perceive. And that does take, indeed, as far as I can tell, being able to stop the internal dialogue, to slow down thought and eventually stop thoughts, which I feel actually stops on its own, or where it comes a time where we don't notice it. So something indeed quite exciting and interesting happens when thought slows down and actually stops. It's actually something quite fantastic. There's just so many things involved for that potentially to happen. I'll mention a few things. I know while we're on the talking about Don Juan and Castaneda, that being a mystery to ourselves is also a concept of always stalking ourselves, in the sense of going beyond self-importance, not making a big deal out of ourselves, going beyond progressively our self-reflection. Is very important, and there's just so many things to say about that for another time. Rama has also mentioned a particular quote that I constantly focus on, throughout these years, many years, is we are nothing in particular. So famous quote of Rama's that I pay attention to this day. This helps me personally to be able to let go of these concepts and ideas that we have about ourselves and have about reality and so on. It has a way, it's one of the methods to actually shift, and I will be talking about shifting in another separate talk, but we talk about shifting into higher awareness throughout these talks over this year and a quarter that I've been doing this virtual classes. So it's a very important thing to be able to shift, and maybe we'll mention a few things about that later. Selfless giving, turns out, this kind of gesture to the infinite, or sometimes referred to as the abstract, is actually very, very important. Selfless giving is a type of gesture. What that actually can do is just beyond anything really I think the logical mind would guess. So selfless giving, whether it's to put a smile on somebody's face or to help the environment in some way, to help the world in some way, spread light in some way, actually has an amazing type of power to it that really helps, believe it or not, with slowing down thought and stopping thought. Plus, it's a lot of fun, and really feels good. Letting go is also major. And that sort of, I found out, kind of happens on its own. But even thinking about how to let go can be helpful. But eventually I've noticed something inside of deep in our being progressively just lets go. And it's another type of kind of science and artistry to that. But it's major. So I'm going to try to hit on the major kind of things involved with no thought. Detachment, of course, being neither attracted nor repulsed. A type of balanced dispassion kind of also has elements of letting go in it. It's important. As I mentioned in other talks about being guided by the higher intelligence, this idea of being guided by an intelligent light is something exciting and actually does, I feel does actually occur. And it's kind of, I mentioned about the logical mind, but there is something obviously beyond the logical mind and intellectual mind that we refer to as the intelligent light, that we can touch into aspects of that progressively that can be extremely helpful. Plus it does have a feeling of being guiding us, so it's very important. It does suggest a particular direction. It just has a way of actually, we pick up a kind of a flow that we can go with, and it can take us somewhere, having to do with receiving interesting knowledge and power that really can help us. So it's also it's along the lines of building up a momentum also. But the nature of it being self-guiding can actually take some pressure off the logical and intellectual mind. So I'll mention something about that shortly. We want to take advantage of that spin generated in a class like this. May say a few more words about that. The Canyons of Light is just, can't say enough about that music set of 15 songs. Literally being able to tap into the power spots. We do practice a fair amount with that in these classes. And I found the power that we actually can tap into some power spots in California, Arizona, New Mexico, I believe some other, maybe missing a state here, Utah, that it's really not that hard to do. It's really fun. And we talk about that from time to time, and maybe I'll mention a few more things about it, but it's this aspect of tapping into power that's a component in stopping thought, in slowing down thought. The friendship and communication with infinity, the abstract, a passion for a deeper reality is quite important. It's a major thing. And I've talked about that, and I'm going to maybe say a few more words about that. But we are, I feel, creating a relationship, a friendship, if you will, this higher kind of aspects of ourselves, the higher spheres and higher intelligence and so on. Trust and confidence in ourselves is key. And we don't have to really force that on ourselves, but it does grow within us. As we go deeper into meditation, into reality, deeper reality, it is really exciting. And there's no question about it. It really excites our being in such a way that we want to even go deeper. So that's an aspect of this cycling higher, this positive kind of cycling higher is a major thing that Rama's talked about, I think, from almost day one when I was in Lakshmi years ago. Excuse me. Being immersed in the higher aura of these higher masters, somebody like Rama or somebody else that you have an affinity towards is quite important. The higher light, as I mentioned, the intelligent light, touching it into that more and more actually imparts something to us, and it makes us more fluid. It actually kind of melts us in a particular way. And if it's done properly, in a balanced way, because we want to use Kundalini energy safely, when we're dealing with light, if we're actually accessing light, actually that's very safe. No way really to do that unless somebody's really already vibrating very, very fast, the way I look at it. So it's extremely safe. The secret, the idea is to get into a higher vibratory state. I do in these classes use the gifts that Rama gave us, at least to the best of my ability. It's something that really excites me and I really enjoy. It's something that he did for us. I consider it a gift, kind of restructured us in particular ways that has to do with what these higher masters can do. It's quite a talent, to say the least. And we, any of us who work with Rama, can work with him either in the physical, and there's so many people actually touching in with him when having not met him in the physical, which is like amazing. And people having such a good time with that, that the idea of working with somebody like that, or we'll also refer to the higher aura associated with somebody like that, and the networks associated with them, there's a lot to be said about being immersed in that. But these gifts is something, it's a gift that keeps on giving, and I'm always learning different things about the gifts that he gave us. And each of us uses it in different ways, and it's quite a study in itself. We're almost there. The recognition of energetic formations and structures, properties, attributes can help us and excite us. We can act in creative ways. It's fluid enough via Kundalini energy, as I mentioned before. But there's actual energetic type of things we come across as we access higher light and these higher dimensions, so that are hard to miss and it can't be missed. And it really gives us a certain amount of confidence and trust that we're in the right direction. It's really self-reinforcing of knowing that we're kind of going in the right direction. It kind of feels great, and we get the feeling that we can actually go deeper and do something with it in a really positive, wonderful way, a fun way. We use power for fun. It's really cool. There's no use of power to manipulate people or manipulate the world in some way. That's ridiculous, and that is not what occurs in this network or with Rama. Maybe mention a few more things. I came up with this actually a few hours ago. I had mentioned this thing before, just as a personal thing. I woke up one day, it was years ago. I just kind of woke up and said, declared, I can stop my thoughts anytime I wish. I just declared that, spontaneously. And then I thought, wow, that was an interesting declaration. But I found it to be quite true. I guess it still depends on different things. But stopping thought or slowing down thought, it may be hard because I feel that we get in the way, or there's some inner conflict going on. I found that at least to be true with me for many years in the past. I also wonder if people really do want to stop their thoughts. They may have some fear or are afraid of losing themselves or losing the world somehow. And this is really an unfounded fear. But nonetheless, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that does go through people. At least a type of fear that goes through people. Excuse me. We do need a certain level of balance across the different areas of a life, but it doesn't need to be perfect. So these different areas are career, relationships, the first attention type of stuff. We use the term first attention and second attention. A certain level of balance there also with the second attention. There's an interplay, as we talked about it many times, between the first attention and second attention. That's another talk for another time. But I've noticed, just from my own point of view, that balance does not need to be perfect. See, the logical mind might say it would need to be perfect. Turns out, in actuality, that it doesn't. At least that's been my experience. So which leads us to our next thought about the logical or intellectual mind has its own way and agenda of getting to no thought, and it doesn't really work. So at least what I've noticed. But it is necessary, I feel, to find out that it doesn't work so that progressively the logical and intellectual mind will let go more. So that experience of it not working or not working very well, I think it's helpful and it's unavoidable, at least from my experience. In other words, I'm suggesting there's something else going on in regards to slowing down thought and no thought. As I mentioned, touched on a few of the points today, but we'll all probably bring it up again in our discussion. But it's quite an art form, quite a fun kind of creative kind of thing. This idea of stopping thought. So we'll start our discussion. I think I'm getting better at this, keeping it tighter. I felt that a little bit tighter. So I listen to these recordings afterwards and I go, God, does that feel good? It all feels good, but sometimes I know I can make it much tighter. That's something Rama talked about too. You know, talking is quite a powerful thing, but it's got to be done properly. Talking can be quite draining if we don't do it properly. But I find out if we can get that balance of talking only so much, it can take us. It can have a power that we can use. So we'll have our discussion right now, and maybe I'll ask a few questions to kind of stimulate the discussion. And then we'll have a final meditation. So maybe we'll see how many songs we'll put in. But let's see what we come up with in our discussion here. Mark, anything come to mind so far?
Yeah, when you were talking about people might be afraid to stop their thoughts, they haven't heard about it. Rama said that you have to become conscious of something beyond your thoughts. So you can go, okay, I can stop thinking, and there's still going to be something to be aware of.
Right. Oh, yeah.
They might think there's just like a void, or there isn't.
Yeah.
You know, they're so used to it, it's kind of hard to give it up. You know, and that's what you were talking. The logical mind is, you know, that's its power is thinking. You know, so and trying to figure it all out.
Yeah, well said, Mark. Yeah, I like what you said also. Yeah, there's something beyond. Oh, yeah, most certainly suggesting there's something really big beyond thought, like really exciting. And so I think that's what keeps people going. They say, hey, what is it? You know, what exactly does happen when you stop thought? What is all this big hullabaloo about stopping thought? You know, I think. You know, Rama was so good about getting people excited about that. Of course, he threw so much, transmitted so much energy and Shakti through everybody and knowledge that they didn't even care anymore about anything, really. You know, stopping thought, like, who cares? So that's part of the secret, too, is like not to, you know, care too much about this, you know, not kind of And then, of course, we get in the way in so many different ways. But I think that was a major thing Rama did, is that he just kind of blew everybody's circuit, so to speak, and, in a proper way, that that the logical mind, intellectual mind just kind of like stopped, kind of got out of the way, at least for a while. And so that was one of his many ways of direct transmission of what it took to stop thought, I think. And, so I'm glad you said that. Let's see if I'll throw this out there. Well, here, I guess this is a question. It turns out I wrote it down just before the class. And I think it's a question for the logical mind, I would guess. Of course, there's so many different aspects of ourself involved in any of these type of classes and almost in anything. The question I came up with is, what do you want to accomplish? What does one want to accomplish with no thought? So that's the idea of accomplishment. So that would probably be addressing some aspect of our outer type of selves, more of the, I guess, logical and, type of self. But any thoughts on that, Mark, that question?
To be honest, I don't want to accomplish anything.
There you go.
I just want to see what happens when I do it.
Yeah, it's a trick question, actually. yeah, this accomplishment is really, so that once again, the reason why I'm saying is probably addressing that logical part of ourselves. Right.
I just want to say, for me, it takes a while to slow thought down in meditation. It's like I can't immediately switch it off. But, and any changes that come from that slowing down of it are very subtle. I think a lot of people, I know I did, look for that big bang,
Yeah.
Big rush of it. It so far hasn't happened like that. It's very subtle changes. So you kind of pay attention to everything, and you can see that you're changing, but it's not like, black to white. It's very, very subtle energy. And that's what Rama's energy was like. Even when he really blasted you, it was like almost you didn't feel anything, but if you were aware, you realized, geez, I'm somewhere else.
I like what you're saying, yeah, and as you're saying, I'm kind of going through my mind a little bit about something.
Well, the sun doesn't pop into the middle of the sky, slowly rises and it gets brighter, and so that's kind of for how it is for me. It's just a slow, subtle change. Absolutely, yeah. You just reminded me. I interjected. Did you see the eclipse yesterday? No. Oh, okay. It's kind of awesome. Oh, you look out the window? Yeah, I had some solar glasses, but it's when you said that, it kind of elicited something I noticed about the eclipse. How slow and then you go, wow, but there's the moon is a little bit in front of the the sun, and a portion of the sun is blocked, and you go, wow, but at the same time it's very it's just a very slow movement of the moon, perceiving the moon. And it's all very subtle too. So, I think you're hitting on a really good point, because I would agree with you too. It's very subtle, and it does take a certain amount of quietness of the mind to notice how subtle it is, and so it's. I would agree with you on how subtle these things are, and you can't really. You can't point at the sun and go, "Oh, it's moving." No, I don't think so. It is, but you can't really see it, and you're actually moving at like 1,000 miles an hour. But I'm still thinking about it. I really like what you said. I'm still thinking about something to say more, but it's we're using other aspects of ourselves when it comes to slowing down thought, and so. It is I agree, it's a very subtle thing, different kind of aspects of ourselves. The more the subtle
physical, obviously, aspect of ourselves are noticing things. And so that's very important, once again, for that logical mind to kind of get out of the way, but in a natural way. Obviously, you can't force the logical mind to get out of the way.
Well, I talk to thoughts, saying, "Oh yeah, same old stuff. That's boring." I don't know. I've tried to find out where they come from, but I haven't figured that one out yet.
Oh boy. Yeah. Also, I'm still trying to come up with that one thought, but maybe it'll come to me. Yeah, I guess it's a thought, right? Maybe it'll come to me. But actually, it is not necessarily this big bang. I think you're making another point. This idea of the mind has that all of a sudden it's the big kind of glowing big bang kind of surprise of something or other. Because actually, all this stuff is something really quite natural and actually is occurring right now for everybody, the way I feel. And I do use the word, I didn't put it in my notes, but it's coming up now in some of my other notes, I feel these words are important. It's more of a revealing, more of a unfolding or even an infolding, as I mentioned, the kind of folding into the mind, which we talked about last month. But something that's really revealed, that's already actually present. So that does suggest that it's not a big bang. It suggests that it's really something that's quite present with us right now. So once again, it's a misunderstanding of what the logical mind has about stuff.
Not that it can't happen that way, but if you focus on that happening, you're going to miss the subtleties.
Oh yeah, it's major stuff that actually happens, but it's that light, that transcendental light, or whatever people refer to it, is unmistakable, and it can't. It's quite fantastic, but it's something we already are. So I don't know if it's something that we already are, that it would be considered a Big Bang type of thing. But I think the selves, the mind and so on, does think that it might be a Big Bang, and maybe it is. But I guess the idea of the self-refulgent light, something that already is occurring and flowing in and out of itself. So I think, once again, if the mind can get out of the way, that would be progressively more revealed. So when that does happen, I have to admit that is quite fantastic. There's no way of mistaking that. So that's why I was saying progressively, I think the logical mind starts realizing that as it touches more into that light, that its ideas about all this stuff is really bogus. It's not true. It's wrong. I don't want to use that word that strong, but I think it does realize it's not the way it thinks it is. So, but that's the progression. But as we know, Rama talked a lot about the Kundalini energy. Just the flow of Kundalini energy and the feeling of where it can take us is a mind blower. It's totally exciting. It's very intense. So yes, this is. We're talking about subtleties, but we're talking about subtleties in light of in the form of being able to notice things actually from the point of view of the selves. But when the selves go away, it's a whole different ballgame. Quite intense, I think. Or I guess it depends on everything, but it's a whole different thing. So it's definitely something for people to look forward to. So where are we at here? probably say a few more words and we'll start our meditation. You can stay we can meditate for a little while, Mark. Okay. But we'll talk a little bit more. Okay, I think you mentioned some things, but you mentioned some important things, Mark. What are some of the things you noticed in regards to slowing down thought and no thought? You mentioned some already. Did you want to mention anything else, Mark, that would be helpful to people?
Don't try too hard. Just relax. You got to relax. Stay attentive and sit up straight, but stay relaxed. That's it.
Yes.
And never give up.
There you go. I was going to say, do I have anything to say more? Right, never give up. If you're knocked on that floor, it may take a while sometimes when getting up, but you definitely got to get up, right? We all have to get up. I certainly have spent time on that floor, to say the least. And get up. It's a good fight, and it's a real good fight that we're engaged in. And like I said, maybe I'll say it one more time. If we do feel the flow of Kundalini energy to that central channel, as we access, if we choose to access some of the chakras, the heart chakra, navel center, heart chakra, and the third eye. It's very noticeable, so it's very exciting. So there's an aspect of the subtle that we talked about, and there's some very, very intense, really, like, real feel-good intensity that can happen with Kundalini energy. And when the cells actually, as we talk about in different classes, when they actually kind of so relax and they get out of the way, there's something, once again, that's quite fantastic that opens up, that is revealed, that is quite natural to us, and it's will be noticed as so. That happens when we go beyond all the cells into this, that light, that self-refulgent light, or some aspect of it, is also quite fantastic, and it changes us. It changes the cells, really. So, an interesting thing, we always sometimes talk about the cells, because if I happen to mention it now, going beyond the cells, of course, self-inquiry, jnana yoga, is a big aspect of also how thought slows down. So I'm glad I actually remembered to say that. So when the cells actually figure out, or finally how to let go, how to get out of the way, there's something or many things that are revealed that are, once again, totally exciting. So without going in crazy with this, one of my questions is what is one really seeking after? The question still comes up, we'll talk about sometime from other classes, is that ultimately, the idea of the cells, the different cells, outer cells, inner cells, what are they really seeking? What are they really after?
Power.
What's that?
Nothing.
I think what they find out is that it's not like they thought it was. They find out that what they're seeking after is really not what they actually thought it was going to be, and they also learn something about themselves as a self, something quite interesting. So that'll be also for another time. We touch on it in various talks. So a lot going on here. Well, yeah, I think we did okay. Meditate short. I think we did okay. This is a subject we constantly talk about from different angles. And you might say that, you could sum this up by saying, hey, how do you find out about all this stuff? How do you know how to approach all this stuff? We mentioned a few things. But if I had to say anything more, and I'll see if Mark has anything more to say, hopefully he does, is that you really have to meditate. You really have to give it a shot. You got to, as I keep on saying, find out. A person has to find out for themselves. They can listen to these people, teachers talk like, a ridiculous teacher like myself or other teachers out there or people. You read the books, and they can take you a certain level. The knowledge comes in so many different forms. But I'm a big, I really feel strongly that we have to really find out ourselves, and that means we got to really push our meditation, push our mindfulness practice, get all those aspects of the life that we constantly talk about in order: creative activities, career, getting the body to move properly, martial arts or yoga or running or whatever it is, and the selfless giving and the other components that I may have missed. But get all that at a certain level, certain tightness. It doesn't have to be perfect. And that's so important, setting all this up. And also that passion, to go ever deeper. Passion, to go ever deeper into that deeper reality. As we go deeper in, there's that balance there, and there's a strength that we're building up, that kind of infrastructure that we build up, like in a building, that foundation. I've been thinking about that over the past couple of weeks. It has a lot to do, you might say it's reinforced by Kundalini. I feel Kundalini energy really intertwines, you might say, to that foundation that we're building of this structure. This powerful structure that's also fluid. It has a lot to do, as I mentioned, with Kundalini energy and all these tightness of the aspects of our life, tightening it all up. That and the passion to go ever deeper. That indeed people will things will be revealed. Different kinds of knowledge will be revealed in power. That will continue to take us somewhere very interesting. It's an adventure, quite an adventure, and Ram has talked about that term, and I've always paid attention, and it totally excited me about this adventure he talked about, this adventure that we're on as perceivers, as perceivers that are on an adventure associated with him. If people want to associate with somebody like that, it's quite an adventure. And there's others, too, that they may want to associate with, that have a type of adventure associated with them, too. So, the networks are different. They're not, it just depends on what people want to do. But I've chosen, to take this ride. I'm going to when I transition, I've decided to take this ride with Rama in the way that I, conceive of it, or also the way that I don't conceive of it, beyond conception. I'm totally excited about it. I get knocked down once in a while. I forget. I get caught up in my own self-reflection. But I just keep on going. I have not given up, and I won't. And I've discovered some very exciting things, which I'll continue to talk about. Mark, any further things to say before we meditate?
No words of wisdom.
No words of wisdom. So we'll meditate. I think, can you go for 3 songs?
Yeah.
Do you have time? Oh, you can? Okay, then we'll touch base after that. Let me just see what time we're talking about here. 3 songs will be the last 3 on Surfing the Himalayas.
About 13, 14 minutes.
Is that 13 or 14 minutes, 3 songs?
Last 3 of them.
Okay, you can do that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no problem, right? No problem. Okay, so let's have fun with this. Everybody who's listening to the call, relax. Kind of let go, but stay, it's a kind of attentiveness, but it's a kind of a fun attentiveness. It's not really a pressure kind of thing, not a force kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to mute everybody, and then we'll meditate in about 15 seconds, and then we'll touch base again before we go home for the evening. Well, I really enjoyed that meditation. I think we did quite well. You like that? I think I'm feeling pretty good.
I always enjoy meditation.
Oh, yeah.
The more I stopped looking for something in it, the more I enjoyed it. You just sit down and do it, and it's much more enjoyable without expectation.
Well said. Well said, Mark. Thank you. On that note, I think that sums up. Yeah, that sums up our talk. Let's have fun, let go, and stay attentive. But probably don't necessarily expect anything. So we'll have a great evening, Mark, and everybody. And thank you so much, Mark, for being on the call and for the great, interesting things you said. Once again, I always think that's so helpful to people.
Take care, Jeff.
You too, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Good night.